Welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for being here. And for those not present on video, we welcome you as well. So thanks for being here. I just want to do some quick introductions. I know many of you know our staff, at least administrators or our full-time staff, either by email or by phone and maybe in person, but we'll just be real quick with these and we'll move on. But grateful for our staff that I get to work with every day. And so we're just grateful for all that they do and the hard work that they put into this. So most of them are over here, so I'll just kind of as we go. Many of you know Todd Myers. He worked with the session, you as session directors and our teachers. So there's Todd. Next, Phyllis. I see Phyllis. There's Phyllis. Phyllis has been helping with all of our hiring. That's kind of our big one. There's many other things that they all do. But Phyllis is with all of our hiring of our counselors, coordinators, building counselors, and all that. She's kind of in charge of that. So that's Phyllis. We're grateful for that. And there's Jenna next to her. Jenna, if you'll stand up. Jenna Sellers. Jenna has been... She does everything in our office and has done it, and we've moved some responsibilities, but she has been working with some of the hiring, but also with our payroll. She also helps with our expresses. Some of you have helped with those as we do those on the weekends, and so we're grateful for all of her work. Sheila Sigurd, there's Sheila right here. Wave your hand. Sheila is our office manager and has all the answers. She talks to almost every parent, I think, when they call. But she takes all those phone calls. She's kind of the front lines with her students, and we're just grateful for her and all that she does. Carol, you're here. Hi, Carol Salmon. Just wave at least. Carol's in, yes, she's multimedia services. Is that what we call your department? Or media services. She has helped with the video that you're going to see right after the introductions, the theme video. That's what she's done. She's also, you've probably seen her on TV. She's in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. She was on about 3 or 4 times. I saw it pan through, yes. You sounded, sorry, Tabernacle Choir. I'm just making sure everyone knew about that. At Temple Square, the new name. So, glad you're here. Are you here to watch the video? Yeah. And you can stay as long as you want, because you helped with the video. Next to Carol is Sherry Bangeter. Sherry, give a shout out. And Sherry she's helped. She's read the handbook about 50 times this year because she's over the handbook. She works with all the BYU sessions, so if you've ever been through BYU, you've at least probably received an email from Sherry, but lots of other things that she does, but those are some of her main things, but grateful for Sherry. Phoebe Lawton. Phoebe right here. Phoebe is fairly new, but you were here a year ago, right? But it's just been about a year, hasn't it? So Phoebe works with Sherry with all the BYU stuff that goes on with scheduling and all of that. We're grateful that Phoebe's been with us to help Sherry as well, but grateful that she's part of the team. Matt Hyde, there's Matt Hyde. There, he'll clap for himself. There's Matt Hyde, everyone. Matt has been working with online training. He's been a big part of that and other things. He has lots of sessions as well, kind of all throughout the country, but many other activities, orientation, games night, things like that Matt and his committees have helped with, but we're grateful for Matt. Thank you, Matt. Ben McKinnon. There's Ben. Ben is our assistant director. Grateful for Ben. He also has some sessions as well. But Ben basically helps me with all the things that I think I try and do. So grateful for Ben and all that he does. He's on almost every committee that we have in the department. So anyways, that's Ben. Next to Ben is Todd Willie. Also known as Papa Willie or Free Willie or Willy Nilly. He'll answer to any of those. Todd has been working with all of our training, with all of our in-person training, both with all of our coordinators, our BCs, as well as the counselor one that is coming up soon. Plus, he has sessions that he's done and all the other things that we all help with. But that's Todd. We're grateful for Todd. I know there's others that may not be here. There were others. There's Michelle. Michelle, stand up. You all know Michelle. Michelle works with all of you, and she keeps you all in line, right? And she tells you what to do and where to go, and we're grateful. In a very nice way, she tells you where to go and what to do. But we're grateful for Michelle. Obviously, she worked with Todd, the session directors and our teachers, and obviously other things. She helped with our financial aid that she's done, so we're grateful for Michelle. Lindsay Vaughn Farrell, you get to get introduced. Yay! Lindsay's part of the financial services, and I think you're presenting today, right? So you'll learn more and hear more from her, but the travel cards and things that you have, she makes sure you all get paid, so be nice to her. Okay. Now, are there others? I know there's some that are missing, but let's see. Amy Hickson, she works with, is Amy here? No. Okay. Amy works with Phyllis, but also so with the hiring of the counselors, but with the health counselors specifically, she's kind of interviewed and hired them, and many, many other things with the hiring and the travel. She does all the travel for all the counselors. So we're grateful for Amy. Who else? And Jean. Jean is not here. She's with her grandchildren in some state, California or Texas, I can't remember. Or New Mexico. I heard they just moved, how's that, from California. Jean is one of our administrators as well. She's just joined us not too long ago, but she was with us last summer. She's got many of the sessions that some of you will be at, and she's helped Sherry with the handbook as well, the staff handbook and the participant handbook. So we're grateful for Jean. Is that it? Did I miss anyone else? That was okay. Okay. Grateful that you're here. I know we'll be together for just a few hours, but they'll go fast, I think, because there's lots of information. Some of it you've heard before. Some of the changes, obviously, you're here to learn about. But just we're so grateful for your goodness and for being here and getting a free meal as well. So that's at least worth it. And I think we're paying you for this too. So, but just thank you for being here. I'll have a chance to say a few things kind of in the middle and then at the end. So, but just know we're grateful and we love you, and just it's awesome to rub shoulders with you. So just know we love you. So we're going to do the... Okay, Ben, do you want to come down? Ben was helped with this theme video that we did, and I don't know if you want Carol to come down. And Carol, come on down. I guess you get to sing to us or something. No?
So we'll get Carol a little bit closer. We'll actually show you the theme video, which is a little bit different this year. Rather than creating an entirely different video, we used the theme song, and so which has a very powerful message in the song, and so created a video to go with it, which they've done a great job with. We'll go ahead and just show it to you, and then invite Carol to come down and share some of the behind the scenes as to how it came together.
This will be shown on Monday at your family home evening activity.
You know you're on the road, but don't know where to go. It's hard to see what's up ahead. You know there's something more, the promise is in store, but you just haven't found them yet. Sometimes there's only enough light for one step at a time. strength to face the unknown. Sometimes it takes leading into fear to see who we're meant to be. Trust with all your heart and take that step of faith. Let Him lead the way in love with all you are. Give Him every single part and trust with all your heart in His goodness, in His love, in His power from above, in His presence, in His blood. Then your life is in His hands. Trust with all your heart and take that step of faith. Let Him lead the way in love with all you are. Give Him every single part and trust with all your heart, yeah. And take that step of faith. Let Him lead the way. Love with all you are. Give Him every single part and trust with all your heart.
So the interesting thing about this is, to start off with, the theme is trust in the Lord. And there were some really interesting experiences that we had in producing this. We weren't sure who our talent was going to be. Scott Gutke is our department head, and he didn't know, and we didn't know who we could get to be our talent. He was praying, and he said, Heavenly Father, I don't have a lot of time. I need somebody. And Heavenly Father said, what about these, Daniel and Lauren? Lauren and Daniel are in a dance group, and they're going on a tour to Europe that will also include doing some program at the visitor center in Rome. So these two youth really, really wanted to go, but they didn't know how they're going to earn the money. They were praying for a way to find money that they could earn. And so their prayers were answered. If you remember, there was a lot of rain a couple of weeks ago, and we had one morning to be able to get a sunrise, and that was March 30th. This was filmed up by West Mountain, and we started driving from Mapleton, and the closer we got to the mountain, the harder the rain started. And we can't take equipment out of a car if it's raining. We can't really film this if it's raining. And we got to the top, and it was still raining, and Scott said, if it doesn't stop raining within 10 minutes, we're gonna have to go down, or else we're not gonna get down. So Scott and I got out, and we walked up to the top and looked around to see if we could see where the clouds were, and it started to just be a fine mist, and we got really hopeful. We went back to the van, and by the time we got back to the van, it had stopped raining, so we took all the equipment to the top. And then the fact that we filmed in 3 days everything we needed to be able to produce this is another trusting in the Lord. So I just needed to tell you the backstory, because I want you to know that this message is really important this year, I think, for the youth and counselors and anybody else. And the way that this all came together is kind of Heavenly Father saying, yes, this is important. This is something that the youth will resonate with, and that they will find a way that in that week with you and everybody else, they will find ways that they can trust in the Lord. And I just wanted to share that, and that's my testimony, and I say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Carol, I think I don't know if anybody's seen the latest BYU studies journal, but they just published an article about the reasons people are leaving the church, and the number one reason, far and away above anything else, is divorce. People who've been affected and hurt by divorce. And so the fact that you zeroed in on that, I think that's going to reach kids like nothing else. So I don't know what inspired you to go that direction, but it's right in line with exactly what we need to be addressing. So good job.
So it wasn't us.
Is this still working? Okay. Just to go right along with that, you can tell that the Lord's hand has been in the production of this video. But really, the message I hope that you get as session directors is it doesn't matter unless it gets used. Use it. Plan your lessons to use it and to be able to utilize the message that's in the song and in the video, because it has power to touch the lives of the youth. So as you're planning your family home evening, make sure that this is a key part of that. And I believe it will be very impactful for the youth.
Question on that. You say use it, are they not going to show it at the very beginning of our talk, or we just plan on to add that to our talk somewhere?
So who's over the family home evening? Oh, you want to address that?
So we'll get into the FHE Morningside topic, or FHE topic, which is, again, it's our theme with the inclusion of the taking it home invitation. So your whole lesson will be on this theme, and then also tying in the taking it home invitation at the end.
So we just need to plan on putting that in our lesson somewhere.
Yeah, so somewhere in your lesson outline, beginning to start, or at a certain point, yeah, wherever you want to put it. But it needs to be part of your family home evening lesson, because it's powerful and they've done a good job with it, so we appreciate that. Thanks, Ben. So I'll just announce some of the next things we're going to do, and then we'll just have those individuals come up one after the other and make their presentations. And also with each presentation, we've included a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, so we'll answer questions as we go. But we'll have Lindsay come up and do our card holder training and then our travel policy information. Then we'll have JD come up and speak to us, and that will be followed by Phyllis doing our youth protection training. So we'll go to that point.
Okay, so we'll get into we'll move the spiritual and we'll get into our lovely travel card. So most of you, I think I've gone through, everybody that's session directing this year should all have a travel card. If you do not, email efycard@byu.edu and I will send you one. There may be a couple of you who are local that live here and that will be doing a Provo session that don't have one. That's okay. So hopefully I didn't miss anybody. If I did, we'll get y'all squared away. I handed out a few new cards to people that had either expired or they're brand new ones. Remember that when you activate those, to not use your Social Security card. It is your BYU ID. Mother's maiden name is Young. And if you ever have to use a billing address, that is the only billing address that will work. The interesting thing is we had an express session just recently, and he had been using the wrong zip code, and it declined the card over and over again. So if you ever have to put in a zip code, that is the zip code you will use, 84602. It may accept it for a couple of times, but then it will decline you. So, I was saying, there are two of you, I do not know who they are, whose cards will expire next month. I will have them and we will mail them out to you. But if you have any issues, let me know. So, as we all know, you are responsible for your card. If it's lost or stolen, please notify both of the following, the JP Morgan and also EFY card at BYU. That we make sure that it gets canceled. JP Morgan will cancel it. If you email the EFY card, then I will be able to issue a new one. Just some other little quick things. Remember to never email it. Watch for the phishing schemes. Keep it in a secure location. All of the transactions that you do are subject to internal controls. They're reviewed by me and the administrator over your section, and also by the travel department at BYU. So we watch them very carefully to make sure that there are no transactions on there that are not approved. Also, please make sure that nobody else uses your card. Please do not hand it off to a counselor or to anybody else. The coordinators and the health counselors have their own cards, so it is your personal responsibility for every transaction. Here are your valid and authorized transaction expenses. The hotel expense for you and the speakers. We've included on there airport parking. Sometimes we reimburse it, sometimes. If you have your card and you are parking at an airport, you can go ahead and use that card. Your car rentals, the gas for the card, any tolls, which a lot of times will actually get added straight onto your car rental. And then one baggage for you, and if your spouse is contracted to be a spouse at session director spouse at your session, your spouse will also get one baggage. That goes for the baggage there and the baggage returning. One thing to mention about this, if you fly American Airlines, I believe that's the one, they will have you swipe your card. However, your bags on American Airlines are free. So if you don't get a receipt, don't freak out. You have to swipe it in order to actually get the tag to print out, but it will be free to you. So if you don't get a receipt, don't freak. Unauthorized purchases, your parking tickets, speeding tickets, or any other traffic violations. So please drive safely. All right. For any of your transactions, please make sure that they are all itemized. The one on the very far, I guess that's your right-hand side, is not itemized. It does not list the items. So your meals are all going to be reimbursed. So that is typically the one that we have the issues with. So your meals won't have to go on your purchasing card. You automatically get reimbursed for those. So don't worry about purchasing those. But any other receipt that you may get, please make sure that it is itemized.
I'm confused. You just said don't worry about it.
Your food, like if you go to a restaurant,
You can't put that on the card.
you do not need to put it on the card because you will get reimbursed a meal per diem. Yeah. Thanks, Mick. All right, so each one of you will get one of these envelopes. Your coordinators will have them, so hopefully they will get one to you. Fill out these envelopes, hand it back to them with all of your receipts inside, and send it back with them. I realize that there are probably a couple of receipts that will happen after the session's ended. You know, your last fuel purchase or your parking purchase. You can take a picture of those and email them to the EFY card at BYU. That's the best way to get it. Or if you would like, we've had this happen a lot. I'm fine if you take the envelope with you and put them all in, just mail them to us. We'll have the correct address of EFY on there. We do like to receive those as soon as possible. I do have to attach them all within 30 days. So if we get them by 15, that gives me enough time to get all, 1,000 transactions that I have to deal with for a week. If you have any problems with your card, if it gets declined or anything like that, please feel free to give me a call. There's my office number, my cell phone number, the email address that you can reach me at. One little quick thing for you, if you look on the back of your credit card, there is an 800 number for JP Morgan. Feel free to call them if your card gets declined. Most of the time, especially with EFY, since we're traveling from city to city, it may get declined because you were in one location and now you're in another. So if it's declined, feel free to call them, but if you need further assistance, go ahead and give me a call or send me an email. I'm usually always by my phone, if not my office, my cell phone. Does anybody have any questions on cards? Okay. All right. We'll move on to my next lovely topic. Our policies. Now you know how to use your card. Now let's talk about what you can use it for. All right, lodging, your hotels. We will only provide the hotel for you for the nights that you are working. If you decide to go out to a session early or return later, your hotel will not be covered on those nights for EFY. Typical travel, oh, Amy's not in here. Typical travel, I believe, is Saturday, and you return on Sunday, right? Saturday to Saturday, thank you. Will be covered. So anything outside of that will be your own. The hotel rooms typically have one bed in them. Please, please, please follow the rules of how many guests you can have in that room. This next one is one that we've had a few situations happen with our expresses this beginning of the season. If you need to change hotel rooms, please call Marcy. Marcy is our travel agent. I have her information at the very last slide for you. But if you need to change, please call her first. There's a few issues with that in that we get discounts for BYU. So if you're transferring to another hotel, we want to make sure that we get the best price for you for EFY. Also, if that hotel is really awful, Marcy would like to know about it so she doesn't continue to book people in that hotel. So it's very important that you contact her first before you move. She has a cell phone number for off hours. That way, if you go to a hotel and it doesn't have a discount, you may be responsible to cover the difference in the cost of the hotel room on your own. Any other accommodations besides this for hotels will be covered at your own expense. And as the session director, you are paying for the speakers' rooms. Michelle sends out the email to you guys that has the speakers' names on them. I know most of the hotels, if you go, when you check in, you can actually get them to print out a receipt for those speakers at the same time. I had a few issues last summer where I didn't have them all, and some of the hotels didn't want to give them to me. So it really helps me out if you guys can collect them for me. Any questions on lodging?
Just one thing that I saw last year that I just encourage as a session director. I was looking over the charges, and the charges were different on the rooms. And it wasn't because the rooms were any different. They had just built them differently, and so I just made a note on that. Just to save some money, because that's something that it was a pretty substantial amount of difference.
That's great, thank you. That is, a lot of times if we get them back and we notice that there's a difference, we'll call them. But if you notice that right off the top, that really does help us out. Thank you. All right, airfare. We cannot reimburse you for airfare. That's a BYU policy that all travel goes through our BYU office, or a travel office. We've had a few very rare exceptions to this rule, but you do have to contact Marcy. If you can find a lower price that Marcy cannot, You need to contact her, let her know what it is. She'll compare and see what she can find. If, on the very rare instance that you have a lower price, she will send you an email saying that it is okay to purchase it on your own. That email has to come to me. So if I do not have an email from Marcy that says you're allowed to purchase your airfare on your own, thank you for the donation to EFY. When you park at the airport, as I said in the card, you can't put that on your credit card. And we will reimburse you up to 100 miles. And this year, your reimbursement is 58 cents per mile. That's up significantly from last year. So we do the round trip. And yes, I do check. So.
Is that 100 miles round trip?
That is, Todd, correct me, but I think that it is. It's a round trip. Now, we obviously know that some of you, like Brother Martin here, because I live down in Spanish Fork, we obviously know that your home may be longer than that. We do take that into consideration. So I think that we're like 110 miles or something like that. We also do take into consideration, how far your house is from it, but that's kind of our general rule. But like I said, I know others live a little further away. So, any questions on airfare? Okay. Personal vehicles. Personal vehicles will be covered at the 58 cents. I should have switched these slides, sorry. Do not put any gas for your personal vehicle on the BYU travel card, because that is included in the 58 cents. Meals while you are driving are not reimbursed unless they would have been actual travel days if you are flying. This goes into a little bit in depth here with if you choose to drive over flying, you will get an airfare equivalency. I'll show you a map after this that tells you what the zones are. You will receive that airfare equivalency for you and your wife, your spouse. Not all of them, sorry. As long as your spouse is contracted to be there. If your spouse is tagging along for fun, sorry. You will be reimbursed. We'll take the mileage. We'll figure that out at 58 cents. We'll add up the two airfare equivalencies. You will get the lower of the two. Mileage cannot be split. So when you're turning in your envelope, please put the total miles that you drove on there. You do not get half for you and half for your spouse. Total goes on the envelope. You also cannot split it between two vehicles. If you both decide that you're going to drive up there, you get one vehicle mileage reimbursement. In addition, if you're driving, you don't get the parking, the mileage to and from the airport, a rental car, or your luggage fees. So your airfare is based upon this lovely map. Marcy and I have gone through this. This has not changed in the last couple of years. We kind of still feel like so far that this is the map or the zones that are going to be used. Obviously, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me at the EFY card at byu.edu or call me. I'll walk you through it. We'll figure out what the best situation is.
This is for driving.
This is if you drive to the session rather than fly. This will be the airfare equivalency that you will get. These were new last year, but just for some of you that either didn't session direct last year or will be traveling for the first time. BYU makes it extremely hard for us to reimburse you for travel expenses, so please use your card. We've discussed that it has to go through BYU. Anything that you purchase on your personal card will not be reimbursed. Thank you for your donation to EFY. Marcy is willing to help you make any additional travel arrangements for your family. If your spouse wants to go tag along to a session with you that they're not contracted for and you're bringing some kids, but you want to make sure you're all on the same flight, let her know that when she books your travel. She's happy to find and book you all at the same time. She will just ask you for a personal credit card at the time of booking. And then that way you can make sure that you're all on the same flight. Here is Marcy's information. As you can see, it's really good to get a hold of her in the middle of the day. But she does have her off-hour cell phone that she carries with her when she's not in the office. If you can't reach her, please feel free to give me a call. I will help out with whatever I can. Any questions?
So you said that if we use our personal card, thank you for the donation, except for when we buy meals.
Thank you. I will clarify that. Your meals, because we reimburse a specific amount for your meals, it's easy to put them on that. You just get an automatic amount. Some people walk away with money in their pocket from meals and some don't. So
You just check it off.
you just check it off in the little envelope. Each of the envelopes will have the meals that you're able to claim. You check it off there. If your spouse is attending with you, there's a little box at the very bottom that says, "My spouse attended with me." And then your spouse will get those same exact meals.
And no need for a receipt for those.
No need for a receipt for the food. If you give them to me, I just throw them away. So if you forget and you put them in there, no worries. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Lindsay. I know there's a lot of logistics information there, and it's new to some of you, but fairly similar. Looks like we gave 8 cents more for mileage, so that's pretty exciting.
No, it's only 3.5. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, it was worse. 3.5 cents, so. Anyways, but grateful. I know there's lots of logistics that we have to kind of cover here in order to get to where you're going, but there is a purpose to all that, and obviously it's for the youth. It's especially for youth, and so we're grateful that you're a part of it, and we have to do this, and they're good reminders for us, so thank you, Lindsay, for sharing. Let me just briefly talk to you about the mental illness, suicide thoughts that often come to you as session directors while you're there, and it's tricky for us, and it is a little difficult because, as you know, if you've been doing this before, the youth feel comfortable with their counselors, which is awesome because they have a trust there, and so the walls come down and their hearts open up and they feel real comfortable and they want to share some things, and just how we go about doing that, it's kind of tricky. Again, very similar to what we've done in the past, but I think we just want to make you aware of some things. So let me, for you and for your teachers that teach at your session, I would have you caution them, and also for yourself, is if when sharing stories, just be careful because there's triggers that come as you share a story about a young man or young woman, suicide, or whatever it might be, or any other issues that might be brought up in a story. I'm not saying you can't share stories, okay, but I'm just saying be careful of the stories that are shared, that they're not triggers. Now, we don't know what that might mean. We don't know what the trigger is for a certain individual. Just be careful. I know we had a few situations just this last summer that either something was said in a classroom or maybe it was a morning side that triggered, and it wasn't just one, but it was multiple people, and so we kind of had to help with that a little bit. But if there's a way that we can be just careful and cautious of when we're sharing stories about sensitive issues, just to be cautious of that, okay? So in your handbook that you'll get when we finish it up, there's some things there's a duty to report, that we have to report on things if someone's sharing things about abuse. There's some slight changes in that. So let me just go over again. You'll see it when you get your handbook, but what I would do is I'd go over the crisis situations I believe we're referring to. It's kind of the matrix. It's got, okay, what do you do if someone shares something here, 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 and then columns of who do we call and things. So let me touch on a couple of the sensitive ones. If a participant won't eat or is purging at the session, what do we do? Basically, if you find out about it, the coordinator or session director should contact us as administrators. So every session has an administrator. Make sure that we're notified of that. And then the other column next to that is administrator or session director or coordinator should contact parent. In this situation of an eating disorder, a health counselor should contact parents after consulting with administrator. Okay. Do we contact police in this situation? No, unless there's an imminent danger that we might see. And should participant be encouraged to contact his or her bishop? Not necessarily in this situation. But when you're out there, you can kind of gauge if that needs to happen. But there is protocols. Coordinators will be helping with that, and they'll work with the health counselors, but work with us as administrators, okay, on that. Now, there's self-injurious behavior is how it's termed. If there's welts or scars or signs of previous self-injurious behavior, same column here, coordinator or session director should contact administrator, yes. Do we call the parents? Yes. Do we call the police? No, unless there's an immediate threat or harm, okay, that you see. Should we encourage them to talk to their bishop? Yes, okay. Okay, so we'll continue with that. Now, if there's cutting occurs at the session, this is handled a little bit different, but very similar. Yes, contact administrators. Yes, contact parents. No to the police unless there's immediate threat. And then encourage to talk to their bishop, yes. Now there's a form that will be filled out, critical situation form. And then we need to talk, because if it happens at the session, that participant will go home. Because it's just, the liability is just too great for us. And we want to get them help. So we'll kind of have to gauge. Does that mean immediately? Does that mean parents have to come and get them after, a 2-hour drive? Whatever it is. But let's talk. We'll talk about that when the situation comes. Work with your coordinators and us as administrators. Okay? Let me hit on, yes?
Is it wise then to either have the counselors address that with the kids, like, and word it really carefully, where it's like, if you feel stress and anxiety, there's different ways to deal with that, and if you in the past have struggled with or thought about that, please let us know, and we'll just support you in those moments of stress. Because the only reason I ask is if a kid cuts and doesn't know that's the result, and that result happens, does it just, like, would that help, or is that open?
I think if we ask them, then it probably will open it up. That's at least my first thought. I think we deal with the things that come to us. If we see some cuts and welts and things, then I think we need to see what we can do to address it. Matt?
I'm talking about orientation later, and one of the points is we let the kids know in orientation
Thank you.
that if we have any reason to believe that they have engaged in self-harm, then we'll be reporting that. So we do let them know altogether.
Thank you. That's new this year, so thank you for that. There was another hand with a question. We got it? Perfect, thank you. Appreciate that, Matt. Again, if those watching, Matt will cover that when talking about orientation. We're going to inform the youth about if there's things that are brought up, then we, by obligation, duty to report, we have to. So thank you. Does that help? Okay. Suicide, there's a couple different thoughts. Suicide thoughts, talk of suicide, and serious threat or attempt at the session. 3 different things. If there are suicidal thoughts, yes, we're going to contact us as administrators. Yes, we're going to contact parents. Yes, we'll talk to the police if there's a threat. And yes, we'll encourage them to talk to their bishop when they get home. There will be a form that's filled out, just so there's a record of it. But if there's thoughts or a talk of suicide, we need to, what will happen is there's a committee that we're trying to put together. That committee basically consists of our attorney, myself, and risk management at BYU, because if there's a serious situation, we need to know kind of the details, what's going on, and then we'll have to decide how do we help this individual first, and then what do we do with them at the session. The risk is really high. We certainly don't want anything serious to happen at the session. And so we're going to take it serious. And so if there is talk or thoughts of suicide that they've had, if you feel like there's some real serious threat that it might happen, then we'll send the participant home. If there's been any attempt at the session, obviously they're going to need to go home, or serious talk of it, okay? We had one of the triggers that was triggered last year in the talk that someone gave. Then they came back, and luckily we found there was a noose that he had tied up. He wasn't in it, but he tied it. It was in his closet. Whether he was going to do it or not, I don't know. But the Lord's with us when things like this that we find out about it. So we want to be careful. I'm not saying this to scare you at all, but we need to take it serious. So if there's any threat or talk of suicide, we need to take it serious. And if we need to send them home, then we will. And we'd love your help and guidance on that when they're at the session. But if they have to go home, help us and support us in that. That would be great. And I think the harm, if we hear of any abuse that's going on, we have to report that. And what's kind of new this year is that we most likely, we're going to get Title IX involved in some of these if there's sexual abuse that's been going on. But we need to also contact the Division of Child and Family Services at the location that they're at. So it's getting a little trickier now. But it's to help these young people. Okay, so now there's going to be more. When you get your handbook, you'll see it. I just want to kind of touch on it, on these. I know it's sensitive topics, and the BYU administration, because we've asked, well, can we give you some scenarios that might come and then talk about those? And they would rather not. They would rather just, if there's a situation that comes, then we deal with it, which is a little scary in some ways, and that's what we've done for the last 3 years when it's kind of gotten serious. A phone call is made, it comes to me, and then I'll call the right people in our committee now, and we'll kind of decide how do we handle this, both with youth and with counselors that might happen. Okay, and so there's a great risk that we just want to be careful. At BYU is sensitive, but yeah, we won't talk scenarios per se, but when they come, get the details as much as you can, and then share it with us, and we'll do our very best to make the best decision for them and for us as a program. What questions might you have? We could probably take a long time, so I want to be careful with that, but maybe one or two.
So I don't want to sound insensitive with this question, so hopefully you know me well enough to know that I'm not. But sometimes there's this culture at EFY where kids use things like this just to stand out.
Right.
They want to tell a dramatic story in a testimony or something like that. And I'm just wondering, like, what was brought up in the front, that if the kids knew from the outset that if these things are brought up, we are going to take it seriously. Like, there's half of my brain that's thinking that would be so good to cut out all the other things. Then there's other part of my brain that's saying, but then if a kid's really struggling, it might, and they would bring someone up in an atmosphere where they feel trust, we wouldn't want to dissuade that.
Yeah.
But I just, every now and then it feels like there's a kid talking about something, and when you get them alone, and it's, you know, it's really was.
And I agree, Shad, and I appreciate that. And that's why I think when we'll take all the cases serious, and then it might be, really what it comes down to, because we've had a few of those, when we make the call home, all of a sudden things kind of change a little bit. But then also mom and dad are like, you know what, we know exactly what he's doing and he's going to be fine or whatever. Now, they may say, we understand what's going on, we'll come and get them. So, but I agree with that, and I appreciate that comment. We're hoping that this announcement at orientation will at least know, look, we're serious, and we have to take it serious. So be serious about it. You know, if there's issues, then let's help you with it. That's good, I appreciate it. Let's take one more, and then we'll move on, please.
If when we come, well, hopefully if we come up upon these scenarios, do you want us to be the ones that call administration, or do you want us to just encourage the coordinators to take over? Because the coordinators are very capable.
Yeah, good question. So the question is, do we have the session directors, you, or the coordinators call? Whether it's calling us or the parents, is that kind of for both? Okay, good. I think when you're at the session, you guys, as with the coordinators, work with them. They may be busy and have to go conduct. You may know the participant better because they have that trust with you as the session directors or the couple that's there. So work with that. I'm okay with that. But I think the main thing is just make sure that the call is made to the administrator. And then we'll kind of decide when we're talking to you, you know what, you're there. Why don't you talk to the parents, because they may have other questions. They'll ask us, and then we'll say, you know what, we'll get back in touch with you after we find out more detail. So is that fair enough? But great question. Work with those awesome young single adult coordinators. It's great training ground for them as well, and great training ground for us as well as we learn how to help them. But I appreciate that. Okay? If there's some other questions about this, we can talk maybe afterwards. But I think as you go through these with that matrix in the handbook, that'll help. Don't be afraid to call us if there's questions. I know you're capable of handling it, but the main thing that we'll tell our counselors is that you're not professional counselors for the mental health issues, and so you're their EFY counselor, and do the best you can with them that way. And then we're going to point them to their parents and point them to their bishop. Because there's some sensitive topics that we can't spend the time on at EFY. And that the world says, well, you can certainly talk about it. And we're not shying away from any topic. But is EFY the place for it? I don't think so. If there's things that are brought up, let's have them go back and talk where there is more time that can be spent with parents and leaders, that they can take care of those other topics that want to be discussed, okay? Is there two others? One and then two, and then we'll be done.
Say real quickly, that's one of the things that we have to make sure that they understand, that the counselors understand, is you're not in a condition, especially on suicide, you're not in a position to be able to counsel somebody that's seriously considering that or whatever, and they need to up that level pretty quickly if they have us do this.
And I appreciate that, and I think we're doing pretty good about getting with our counselors now. But when you're on the ground with them at the session, sometimes they forget, so remind them. That's great. Thank you, Mick. Perry.
Maybe just JD as one piece of feedback for administration. Sometimes coordinators are so used to working with you that I've noticed sometimes in the past we don't find out until later.
That's good, yeah.
So it's just good feedback maybe for you that once they're calling you, if it's them and not us, would you just remind them, are you keeping it?
We'll ask the question. I appreciate that. And I know it's tricky too, because your focus is you're giving a presentation and be cautious of your time, but I love to have you involved. So I would rather everyone do kind of a team effort. Now, we don't want everyone to know about it, right? But we will certainly ask that question if we've involved the session directors. That's great. Appreciate it. Thank you. We love you. We'll. I don't know who's next. Phyllis, are you next? I think so. We'll keep on moving. Todd is here. Do you want this or you want the...
Alrighty. So, on the topic of dour subjects, we get to talk about BYU's child protection policy. You all should have received, those of you who are here, a document that kind of encompasses BYU's child protection policy. So this is just going to be a brief overview of some of the things, and a lot of the things we've already covered, but since it's a BYU program, we do need to review this policy with you, and we'll do it briefly. The BYU child protection policy does have that there is a duty to report. A duty to report means that if you are aware of a child who's been subjected to abuse or neglect, or have observed a child being subjected to conditions or circumstances which would reasonably result in abuse or neglect. Now, in your situation as session directors and spouses, your duty to report is to the administrators. There will be a, what's the new form's name? It's not critical situation report is what it's called now. Formerly an abuse report, but it's not called that anymore. And you'll be given that report to fill out, and then your administrators will take care of the report for you, as long as you fill anything out that you're aware of. So that's something you need to know. And of course, this is BYU's policy, so it does say contact the BYU Office of General Counsel, but your administrators will take care of that for you. So these are some basic standards of conduct. This child protection policy is for all BYU employees, meaning youth counselors, so we don't think that you have these problems, but I have to go over them with you, which is to adhere to the honor code of BYU, and do make sure that you transport minors in a vehicle that is rented by the university or a university vehicle, and there must be at least 3 people in the vehicle if there's a minor in the car. So the minor would be one of the 3, but never one-on-one. What you don't do is, and I know you would never do this, participate in demeaning activities, strike a minor, have a one-on-one contact with the minor, like those one-on-one conversations where there aren't people in the vicinity, right there, an eye shot, earshot, and don't ever enter alone a bathroom area. This is often for like counselor situations where they might be sharing a bathroom, which you generally would never be in that situation. And then you don't transport minors in a personal vehicle, not your vehicle, nor in a vehicle alone that was rented by the university or EFY. Another thing to consider, in case you didn't know this, we are not able to transport youth to a hospital emergency room. That has to take place from an ambulance, believe it or not. So our health counselors have been trained in protocol with communicating with parents and driving them to like a urgent care. But if it's an emergency situation that an urgent care can't take care of, then EMS will be called and they'll go in an ambulance. If a parent has said no ride to the doctor, no anything, but it's critical enough that a health counselor has protocols to call the EMS, and EMS decides that they need to go to a hospital, then it's out of the parents' hands. The parents don't even have a say. The EMS decide that they are ending up in an emergency room, and they will go via ambulance. So just so that you know, because this is kind of new-ish and different than what has maybe been done in the past. Standards of communication. Of course, our communication needs to use good judgment, which I know you all use. Use clean language and don't use profane language or participate in vulgar, crude, or immoral discussions. Again, this is our policy for everyone, and we don't believe that you do any of these things. And then this is one, it can be kind of tricky, but this is BYU's policies, topics to be left to others, which is mental health issues. In specific, it doesn't mean, oh, don't talk to youth who are having suicidal ideation, but definitely to recognize that, I don't know, I don't think any of you are professionals, but I think this is just for the general, is to talk about past or current serious transgressions, which we definitely wouldn't want like a counselor or somebody having those conversations, or same-sex attraction or sexual preferences, if approached about these topics, if it's an individual setting, you need to make sure that the individual who might be maybe divulging information understands that you are not professionally trained to address those issues. Encourage them to talk to their parents and their ecclesiastical leaders. In a group setting, definitely you always show love. I think, if nothing else, the thing that I value the most about session directors and their spouses is the love that you show to the youth. And the way that you communicate with them, with your experience, is something that our young single adults don't have that experience that you have, and we know that you are really good at this part, testifying of the atonement of Jesus Christ. Sometimes in almost any situation that you encounter, a testimony goes a long way, and obviously refer them to their parents and ecclesiastical leaders. This is just a brief overview of the policy. I think there's more details kind of hammered out in that fine print that you have in front of you. Make sure that Michelle, who's up front, receives that. And those who are not here, what is their method of getting this? Okay, you will get it via email. Those of you who are not attending in person, you'll get it via email, and then you'll have to email it a signed copy back. Any questions? Yes?
Just a real quick thought. Per past session experience, we found out that the invitation or the call to EMS, when you're going to call for that ambulance, doesn't cost anybody any money until they put them in the ambulance.
That's correct.
So if you have any questions or doubt whatsoever, get EMS there as fast as you can. Let them assess it.
Right.
Let them tell you, oh, we need to take him in, or no, you're okay.
Right.
Before you worry about anything. It's
Right.
all free.
So in case the mic didn't catch you, but you do have a nice booming voice, it doesn't cost anything to have EMS show up. It's the only cost is if they end up getting an ambulance ride, and then mom and dad are paying for that. Or if it's life flighted, which actually happened last year. So, yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
So we're actually going to have those, you can pass those forms to the ends, and while you do that, we're also going to have Sherry come down and get ready, and we'll play you one of our songs for this year so you can get a taste of what our album looks like.
Sometimes you're left in the pouring rain. Sometimes your heart just starts to break, and there's no end in sight. There are days when your fire burns out. Everyone keeps pulling you down. You're all just trying to survive. When you fall on your knees and there's no one else to turn to, just look up and you will see that there's someone there who loves you, and he is on your side, waiting till the moment's right. You're not alone. You're not alone. He'll never let you go. Oh, go. He'll never let you go. Oh. It's hard to see when you're looking down. It's hard to hear when you're drowning it out. But oh, he's always there. When you fall on your knees and there's no one else to turn to, just look up and you will see that there's someone there who loves you, and he is on your side, waiting till the moment there's no one else to turn to. Just look up and you will see that there's someone there who loves you, and he is on your side, waiting till the moment's right. You're not alone. You're not alone. He'll never let you go. He'll never let you go. He'll never let you go. He'll never let you go.
Can we clap? I like the song.
Yeah, please. It is really good to be with you. I think we eat wallabies and then we start to hear the music and it starts to feel real, that it's coming soon. It's great. So let's talk about a few things that are new for 2019. We're growing. So there's a few changes to sessions. Texas College Station is a new location that is replacing San Antonio. Florida DeLand is replacing the Jacksonville session, and New Hampshire Ringe is replacing New York, Albany. So a couple of changes there. Montana Billings and Colorado Denver, those have been every other year sessions, and they're back for this year. And Logan, Utah, 04 is an addition. So we're excited for those sessions and changes. We are also getting a little younger. 13-year-old youth who turned 14 by December 31st can now attend EFY. So to kind of coincide with the church's age group direction, that is happening at EFY. So just be aware in your teaching and whatnot that you'll be addressing a little bit younger audience too. So we're excited about that. We're also setting you up for success. So there's some new online training videos. So there's 10 listed there. So if any of those are some training videos that would be helpful for you or helpful for the staff and helping you get to know a little bit more about EFY, then please take advantage of those new training videos. Okay, we'll talk about some agenda changes. This year, the agenda, we've switched it, well, we've made some changes, and when you see some of the changes, you'll think, this seems a little funny, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. But just so you are informed, we've come up with a new way to give our staff, particularly counselors, time off. And so that time off is now mandatory, and it coincides with their duty roster. And so they're assigned a counselor position, so to speak, A, B, C, or D, and so they'll follow that time off duty roster schedule. And in order to make that as equal, to have equity across the board as far as we could, there's some changes that happen to the agenda just a little bit. So some of those changes that are very slight but seem kind of strange, that could be the reason, is just to make those changes better. So please, if you notice, activities where there are fewer or less counselors, or just notice as you hear and work with the staff, whether this is working or not, please give us some feedback. We're hoping that they're much more energized, that they don't have to be that super counselor who never needs a nap. We know they do. So watch out for them. We're trying to watch out for them as well and make sure we keep them healthy and able to do the amount of sessions and weeks that they need to. So we appreciate your help there. Okay, so Sunday, the schedule has changed a bit. The meetings will start 1 hour later, so they have just a little bit more weekend. And then the FCBCs will have their meeting from 7:20 to 7:50, go right into staff orientation, 8 to 8:15, followed by the session director message, a little shorter now, 8:15 to 8:45. And then following that, during building counselor breakout, you have the opportunity to meet with your field coordinators. And then when you finish meeting with your coordinators, it will be the counselor, it's the mingle, co-counselor, get to know you session. So the focus is a little bit different. Rather than going right into planning, we're encouraging counselors to meet together, talk together, share experiences and goals, find commonalities, and just have an opportunity to get to know each other before they jump into planning. So don't hesitate to mingle with them and get to know the staff, because they won't be doing a lot of planning on Sunday evening. So spend some time with them when you're finished meeting with the coordinators. And then during that time also, BCs will be doing some counselor interviews, kind of part one. They'll split up their counselors, do part of them on Sunday and part of them on Monday morning. So Monday morning, one of the changes, we're making a slight change in the dress code for check-in. During check-in on Mondays, counselors, we're asking them to dress, all staff actually, they'll have their EFY polo with solid colored black, khaki, navy, or gray business casual pants. They can wear jeans or a knee-length or longer skirt, but just no holes, shreds. Yeah. We want them to look professional. We want parents to feel comfortable leaving their youth in our hands. So we just ask you as well to comply with this dress code for Monday during check-in. And then Monday morning, the changes, business meeting will still be from 8:30 to 9:15. Then they'll have kind of part two of co-counselor planning and counselor interviews. And then all staff, everyone is on materials distribution except those who will be singing or taking some of those parts. They'll be doing, they will have already auditioned, but they'll be working with the BC who is in charge of singers. So just make sure that you, if you have any requests for songs, that you can, if you turn those into your coordinators on Sunday evening, then they'll work with the staff and get those songs assigned quickly on Monday morning. And then reflect and review is 30 minutes. It was typically 20, and it doesn't mean that we're going to have them do longer reflect and reviews, but we're just trying to be a little more realistic in that if they go over, we want them to go to bed with a happy, calm, no lights out now, banging on doors, anything. We're just giving them a little bit more leeway in order to get those kids to bed on time. Lights out is still at 10:30, but they'll do reflect and review with journal time and prayer as part of that half hour. So when you're visiting or taking part with any of those reflect and reviews, that's a schedule change. Tuesday, their morning meetings, BCs and counselors, and breakfast are 15 minutes later. 15 minutes doesn't seem like much, but when you're tired, 15 minutes can make a big difference. That's enough time to get ready. So they're going to get a little bit more sleep. So classes also have 15 minutes of transition time instead of 10. Stay at home is still 10 minutes, but you're not usually walking as far, but at sessions where there's some travel distance between times, we are hoping that 15 minutes allows just a little bit more time for everyone to get settled. Yes, Mick?
Is the 15 minutes, is it 5 minutes off the morning side, or is it 5 minutes off class time? Are the classes 45 minutes or 50 minutes?
Classes 45. And then banner and chair preparation has moved from Wednesday to Tuesday, just before the dance. So we're going to introduce them to that phase of games night just a little bit earlier, and so they'll have time to work on those banners and chairs, maybe improve them, and have time to approve anything that they might want to include that may not be quite appropriate, so they can make some changes. So that will happen on Tuesday from 6 to 6:30, and then the Tuesday dance is 30 minutes shorter. So yes, there was much clapping when we announced that to staff. Okay, Wednesday, now the 30 minutes prior to games night, there is game night prep. So that's an opportunity to teach the games before heading to the field and to be on time. And then we have a new format for games night, and Matt is going to explain all that to you in just a second. We're excited about that. Then pizza night, no more collecting money from the youth and our BCs strapping lots of money to their body, hoping they don't lose it. That will come out of the enrollment fee, registration fee, so, yeah. We're simplifying, orders are being simplified to a few choices. It's not about the pizza, actually, it's about the time together. So we're simplifying there. Office coordinators and administrators and our purchasing agent at BYU will be doing all of the arranging with pizza companies, and so we'll take that load off of the building counselors. They'll just turn in their orders, and hopefully that is just not the drama that it has been in the past. So. Thursday, a change, reverence. It used to be invitation to reverence, testimony tips. It's now called reverence testimony discussion. We're putting a little bit more emphasis, not just on a tip for bearing your testimony, but much more emphasis on what a testimony is and what a testimony is not. And that discussion will happen just a little earlier in the day, from 12:15 to 12:30. And as I said, the focus has changed just a little bit. And then the musical program, Thursday evening, the theme for this year is the power of a personal testimony. On Friday, session showcase. We'll not use daily hashtags this year, but we will still have the session hashtags, Instagram, and email accounts. And then at the end of session showcase, time will be allowed or allotted for the youth to take an EFY evaluation survey. That has typically happened after a session, but we feel like we can get more response if we're just doing it right on site and having the youth and counselors take part in counselors will take part in a separate survey at that time. But we hope we'll get some great response from the youth. So that's when that's going to take place. And lastly, here's the countdown. So it's coming quickly, and we're so glad to have you be a part of it. Any questions on the changes? Yes?
This might be addressed later with the Morningside topics, but I noticed that the counselor fireside, we have a shorter amount of time. Are there any other time changes to our session directing, speaking times?
If there is, they're only slight, very slight, 5 minutes, like with classes. So very few. We tried to keep those as they were, and I think most of the other changes came with some of our activities, dances, and a few other things. So I don't think there are any major changes to your assignments. Any other questions? Great. Thank you so much.
Now, we're going to go and look at something that you all were dying to know, but you actually already know because we sent them out. So it's just a review. We're going to go talk about the Morningside topics. And I'll read the rest of the agenda for the evening. I'll go over Morningside topics, then I have another minor topic. And then Matt will go into orientation and games night. And then we'll have Phyllis come and do sharing the gospel activity, and then Michelle will go over evaluations. After which time we'll probably have another song, and then we'll close with remarks from JD. So, most of you have probably already seen these Morningside topics since we emailed them out. But we'd just like to go over these and tell you a little bit about how we came up with the Morningside topics. We have a committee, as always, that we work with of session directors who meet with us here at the Harmon. And for several weeks or a month or more, we go and work on these topics. We get the theme from our department, and then we work together to come up with different ideas and possibilities for Morningside themes. It's a lot of prayer and pondering that goes into it. And then we come up as a committee with these Morningside topics, and then we present them to our department. And after the department reviews them and we approve them, then we move forward with those, and we turn them over to you to add more of your information to and personalize them. We feel that there's been a lot of inspiration that's come in working on these and coming up with these. And so we feel like this is something that is been given to us to be able to give to you to take to the youth this summer. And that these topics will be meaningful and beneficial to them. So we're very excited to have them for the summer and hope that you'll be able to take time to study and ponder these and then take them and work them into your Morningside outlines and personalize those and then share them with the youth. So for Monday FHE, the theme is our EFY theme, Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. And that's going to be based on the full theme scripture, which you can see is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, as well as the Taking It Home invitation. You'll have the theme introduction video as part of that, as we saw, and then you'll have your message. And as part of that, we'd like you to work in the Taking It Home invitation with that or at the end to help the youth catch the vision of how this all ties together. And it starts Monday night with your family home evening message and then goes across the week with the different activities. Tuesday, trust the Lord to direct your path through personal revelation, and that's based on President Nelson's counsel to increase our spiritual capacity to receive and act on personal revelation. Wednesday, trust in the Lord that the Lord speaks through his prophets and apostles, and that's based on the principle that the Lord gives us or guides us through his commandments and the teachings of both ancient and modern prophets and apostles. We want you to be able to understand that not only do we receive guidance and direction from the scriptures, from our ancient prophets, but we have living prophets and apostles today that lead us and guide us. And as you find opportunities throughout the week to use clips from conference talks and from worldwide broadcasts, use those. Let the youth see the faces of those prophets and apostles so that they can begin to build a relationship and a connection to the living prophets and apostles who are guiding us in our day. Thursday, trust in the Lord's divine design for you. And that's based on the Lord's personal love for you as an individual, as a plan for you. Each has unique opportunities, trials, talents, and gifts. There are divine roles for men and women, family life, and family circumstances. And then Thursday night fireside, trust in the atonement of Jesus Christ and his love for you. Friday, trust in the Lord as you help to gather Israel. This is again based on President Nelson's worldwide devotional for the youth, to the invitation that he made to them. The whole week we've spent our time telling them that we want them to trust in the Lord and build that relationship with the Lord, but we want them to understand that the relationship goes the other way too. The Lord trusts them and has invited them to participate in gathering Israel. We want to make that transition from Monday through Thursday to now Friday. We're telling you that the Lord trusts you and there's a part for you to do in all of this. So those are Morningside topics. Do you have any questions on those? Brad?
Do you have is there a concern that if we're covering personal revelation and then all the teachers are going to be talking about feeling the Spirit, will that be different enough?
I think so, because when the teachers talk about recognizing the Spirit, they're going to be helping them understand that the feelings, the inspiration that you receive ties into how the Lord communicates with you and how that direction or guidance and inspiration comes to you in the form of personal revelation. So hopefully in their class they're exploring some of the different ways that we each receive differently personal revelation. So
That would be wise for us to reference. Is it that day?
that would be Tuesday morning, the first class.
So when do we do? So we could say.
You can segue right into the
Brother
class.
Wilcox just brought up. If we know that's coming next, that might be wise to bring it up in our morning studies.
Another piece of inspiration. I don't know if we ever tied that together, but that would be great.
But you know what might be helpful is if you haven't taught for a little while, we ought to just send you the outline of what we give to the teachers that teach that, how to recognize.
So that it's not a duplicate.
So then you'll kind of see the outline that we say, hey, here's some things that kind of guides that.
We could put the outlines for recognize the Spirit and then finding answers to questions on the OneDrive account. So you can go through and see those outlines and all the resources tied to them. Anything else? If not, I want to move on to my next. The next topic that I wanted to talk about is something that we've seen growing in EFY over the last several years, and that's the idea of sub-themes. We've had a number of different ways that happens. Sometimes they're campus-based. We have a Tacoma's campus that looks a lot like Hogwarts, so people that like to do Hogwarts-themed games nights. Sometimes we see it in Morningside topics and people that have set topics that they like to use every year, and they just repeat those each year. Sometimes it can be the Thursday Young Men's, Young Women's message, which we have one of, and you saw it, but people that like to take it a different route and do their own personalized version of that, or just any number of things that come up across the week. Going back to our theme and tying into the Morningside topics, we've spent hours and days and weeks and months pondering and praying for guidance to have a theme for EFY and have a set of Morningside topics. We believe that we've been inspired and received revelation on behalf of EFY to have a set theme for EFY, one that we could use to strengthen the youth for this year. And so with that in mind, we would ask everyone to use our Morningside topics, use our EFY theme, focus on those things that we have spent much time and much prayer and put a lot of heart in, both us and our session directors that have helped us with that, and stick with those themes. Let those be the guiding theme and the guiding messages throughout the week to allow the youth to feel the Spirit and have the guidance and direction that we're hoping that they will receive while coming to EFY. We want you to be able to put your personal touch on EFY, and we love it when you go and add your individual personalized messages to our topics. But we would like that our topics and our theme be the overall message, the main message and focus of the week. So please add your portion and your part, your personality, your individual insight and inspiration to EFY. But let what we have been inspired to use for EFY be the overall guiding message and theme for the year. Any questions or thoughts on that? Great. We appreciate all that you do for EFY. We love the messages that you bring and share with the youth and the strength that comes from you doing that. And so we're excited to have these Morningside topics and have our theme be new to the youth this year and have them be able to experience that and make that a part of their lives and their testimony. So now we'll move on to Matt, and he'll go into his topics.
Okay, I'm going to keep the lights on because my slides aren't that important, but what we're talking about is, we're going to talk about a few times where the session directors are involved throughout the week. The first one is orientation. So I'm just going to run through these real quick because it's getting late, but our orientation purpose is, let's just get them excited, let's get them orientated, which means, of course, to share information, introducing the important people. Your role is to introduce yourselves. We want you to make it fun, but we also want you to keep it short. I've seen some people we want you to be creative, but not too creative, okay? Orientation needs to move pretty quickly, we don't have a lot of time. And also your role is to introduce the Big Five and our obligation to report, which we're gonna look at in just a second. Now that presents you with a challenge, because orientation is supposed to be fun. This is their first exposure to you as a session director, and you're going to be one of the main minister and main teacher, but you also have to come out and do these heavy things. So that's really your challenge, is how do you manage introducing kind of the heavier stuff without making it a downer for orientation? You don't want to be seen as the guy who comes in and makes everything boring, right? Okay, so that's the challenge we're going to kind of talk about. Also, it's their first impression of you. So we're going to make this a little bit easy on you. We're going to try to kind of standardize how we introduce our BCs and session director. We'll make a slide for each person. You'll still be able to grab the mic and say some things you want to about yourself, but we want to make it move quicker while also being fun. They connect with visual images, especially moving ones, so hopefully this will help them connect with people. And this is just a suggestion of some of the things the BCs might do. The coordinators might read each point, and yeah, that's the best quote ever. "No, chancho, I would never leave you." All the youth are little chanchos to me. That's what I want them to know. Okay, so hopefully that'll we'll try to make those introductions fun. There have been some years where we didn't even give the session director time to come up, and we want to make sure that we give you guys at least that second to introduce yourselves and share something fun and some quotes or your favorite food or some pictures of your kids. Again, something fun as long as it's pretty quick. Okay, then you'll come back and share the Big Five. We're going to come back and look at this more closely in a second. You'll also share the obligation to report, which I'm just going to read really quickly. Last year we did videos with the robots. We're not doing those this year. It was a good idea in theory. Didn't quite land this week. Hoped it would. So you guys are going to read this statement. Your health and safety are first priority to us. As a part of that priority, if EFY personnel have reason to believe that a child has been subject to abuse or neglect, then such personnel may report to parents, law enforcement, or other appropriate state agencies. This is also the case if they have reason to believe the participant has engaged in self-harm. And as far as being sent home for self-harm, that's actually in the big 5. It's if you do any harm to yourself or others, you'll be sent home. So that is also, should be clear. So my question for all of you that I'd like to generate some discussion is, how have you navigated this challenge of orientation? Of you don't want to be seen as a downer. You don't want to be seen as just the rule enforcer. However, you have to do a really good job with this stuff because this is absolutely crucial. So I'd love to hear some ideas or thoughts of what you all have done to make this effective, to make this really meaningful, while also not detracting too much from orientation. Who has some thoughts? Go ahead, Chad, really loud.
Okay, so this isn't about this part. I'm wondering if I am a downer. Because every now and then...
Is someone talking?
Every now and then, what our VCs are doing on stage...
Last year he was asked to do an interpretive dance across
Well,
the stage.
no,
He
that was
refused.
awesome. I did a great job. I think every now and then orientation could be fun and energetic without being completely ridiculous and silly and attracting attention to the VCs and field coordinators. And every now and then it feels like you have to overcome the awkwardness that happened on stage. And then you put that juxtaposed against now we stand up. So I don't think it's just the seriousness of this. I think sometimes it's the absolute ridiculousness of what's just happened.
Yeah, that's a
Did not offend anyone, just like.
No, that's a great comment. That's another reason why this is my first year in charge of orientation. I'm trying to standardize some of these things better because I've seen some VCs nail it. Some coordinators just, they nail it. It's perfect. It's creative, it's fun, it's quick, it moves. Others I've seen get way too creative, way too silly, and that's kind of another thing behind trying to standardize that. So I think that's great. We don't want it to be too much of a juxtaposition.
So that's going to be for VCs and like everyone, just that.
Yeah. And we can look at other ways we can kind of, and again, it is supposed to get them excited. It is supposed to get them, I mean, the two purposes of orientation do kind of contrast a little bit because it's to get them excited, but also to share really important information. We're trying to balance those. But yeah, if people are getting too silly, it kind of shows that they don't realize that orientation has two purposes because they're undermining one purpose by going too far with the other. So I think that's great feedback.
Something that I've really appreciated about Dan, I'll just speak about him for a second, is he has a great capacity to love. And so when he has to talk about the Big Five, he really just emphasizes how much he already just loves those kids and he would want them to miss out. But that being said, we have to live by these things. But we love you, we want you to be here, it's going to be a great experience. So let's just stay away from these five so that you can really enjoy what's coming up. And so far, it has been effective.
I love that.
Don't you think that if you communicate that powerful love, yeah, it might not be as fun as exciting as what was happening 5 minutes ago, but it's not going to be a downer. No one's going to complain if they're feeling loved in that moment, right? One's like, man, I feel really loved right now. This is such a downer. It's not going to happen. I think that's just such a great perspective to approach this with. Maybe one more thought about how we can navigate.
I'm just interested on overall how many get sent home a year, and is that going up or down?
I don't think we keep.
We don't keep stats, so I don't know. I would say, for 37,000 youth coming, it's a really small percentage that goes home. So I would say it's probably about the same. We get pretty good kids that want to be there, and their parents have spent a lot of money, so they're like, you better not come home. Just on Saturday. So that's a good question, but yeah, we don't know.
Okay, I think we often, we use these verses, which are just some of the most powerful in all the scriptures, to talk about power and influence and to talk about when we need to correct somebody. And we're not correcting anybody in orientation, but who sees something up here that might, that inspires you or gives you direction on what you're thinking right now of how you can navigate this tricky scenario of presenting something that's kind of hard while still maintaining a good atmosphere. Does anyone see anything up there that kind of helps them, inspires them, Adam?
I mean, relating to the whole scripture of how to correct, I think as a session director, you can approach it being serious but not overbearing, and coming at it, as Sister Hess said, with love and compassion. So I don't think it's our job to reprove or be sharp even, because they haven't broken the big five. Right. So we shouldn't come out like we're gorillas getting ready to bash them, you know. I think when I do it, and I'm not saying I'm great at it, I just think I just do it. I just share it like they're young adults that can handle this information, not like they're little kids coming to a kindergarten party. I think how you view them and why you're doing it, because you want them to stay, and if you bear testimony of that, you let them know that, it shouldn't even come across as too hard. And I do agree with Shad about the silliness. It gets too silly, but I don't think it is a juxtaposition to have fun and to share this in a way that is serious, but dignified, I guess, and respectful with the Spirit.
Yeah. We have seen some, try to almost make the Big Five part silly to stay in line with the rest of or to make it kind of more of a game-like, and so we are a little concerned. It's a hard, because you want to make it memorable, you don't want to be too much of a downer, but we can't get really silly with the Big Five and this obligation to report, because it's not funny, and it's absolutely crucial. Daryl?
Just, if the first time they see us is doing the Big Five, that's probably not the right impression we want to be giving. They should already know who you're like, because you've already met them in the line. You've been talking to them as they're coming in. You've been high-fiving them and joking with them and talking with parents and having this great, they know you're going to be a personable person, that you love them. And then when you stand on stage and you say, all right, now I'm going to cut back on that love and be a little serious here for a minute, I think that's going to drive it home a little bit better.
So more motivation to be out at check-in, connecting. I think that's great. We really want you guys to prepare for this. Sometimes it feels like folks are kind of winging it. This is a really important thing. It's not just getting up and reading off a page. Be prepared for how you're going to present it. Unless you really feel like, some of you guys are saying just present it straightforward because they're adults, I really think that's a great approach. The last thing I want to point out before we move on from this is an added part to the Big Five that has been alluded to. Be advised that all crimes and incidents or pranks of a harmful or destructive nature, think anything that could be labeled harassment, will be reported to local authorities. Consequences resulting from actions taken by local authorities are out of our control. We're getting a lot of pressure from different directions as far as there's a Cleary report, Sherry, is someone say Cleary? There's different things that we're being obligated to do. So if there's criminal activity or harassment of any type, we have to report that to local authorities. So youth need to understand the seriousness of we can't control what happens after that, okay? Any other questions or?
Maybe real quick, when you're meeting with your coordinators on Sunday night, that might be a really good thing to ask, hey, what do you do at orientation? Then you guys can kind of see how they're doing it, and if it's a little off track, bring them back on, say, hey, at least for this week, can we do, because we're trying to get it in line, right? Help them if they've veered off, because sometimes they get away from the main office and they get a little crazy sometimes. So yeah, talk to them on Sunday night about that if you're concerned.
Okay, I'm going to zip through this really fast because there's a lot of fun information here, but not as so much crucial information. Long story short, here's all the problems we've had with games night. Starting late, youth don't know the games, dehydrated youth, anxiety, disorganized, unpopular games, waiting for rotations. Games night ended late and there's not enough room. And we have changed some things about games night that are just going to completely eradicate these problems. The biggest one that you guys need to know, first, you already heard we're doing band cheer prep on Tuesday. We're going to begin that unit because that's one of the most unifying activities of the week. So we want to start earlier. They're going to have time to develop that cheer over. They're going to start it then, but they can kind of fine tune it so there won't be kids reading their little song off a piece of paper, So hopefully that's better. Games night prep on Wednesday. They're going to learn the games. It's been so disorganized because they don't know the games, and BCs are screaming out the rules and no one's listening. It's just chaotic. Kids are getting anxiety through the roof at games night, okay? We got so many kids with anxiety giving us feedback that they hate games night, okay? So now youth are going to be assigned, their company's going to be assigned to one location for the entire night. There'll be a BC there with 4 companies. They'll run one game. They'll play it as long as they want or as short as they want, and then they'll give everyone a break and move on, and they'll set up the next game. There's no rotations at all. It's going to change everything. It's going to be so awesome. You guys will be the ones rotating. Field coordinators and session directors will rotate to the different locations to view the cheers. So instead of hundreds of people rotating, it's just you and the coordinators rotating. Doesn't that make sense? I feel a round of applause for myself coming on right here. Right? Just kidding.
So they're going to get dehydrated then?
Yeah, you guys are going to get dehydrated. So the health counselors are freaking out about this one. The health counselors will rotate through taking them to water stations whenever and however many times they want. We've had a hard time with some sessions they want to, it's just going to be way better. Instead of having there's some companies who had to wait to go all the way around the rotation to get their water, and by that time they're parched. Others got water at the beginning, and by the end they're parched. So now health counselors can really customize it much more, and they can bring them twice if they want to. And the water can be wherever we want on the field. It's just going to be very, very convenient. And again, groups will, if they like a game, they play it longer. If they don't like a game, they won't play it once and they'll be waiting for all the other rotations. They'll just stop playing it. And best of all, when it's time for games night to end, it just ends. We just end. We don't have to wait for anything. Games night almost never has ended on time in the past. When it's time to end, we don't have to wait for any rotations. There's just nothing but just ending. So we'll be more on time for pizza night, even though the pizza will probably be late, but we have a contingency in place for that. That'll work better this year. Any questions about games night?
Will the kids still come to a certain point and cheer for the other ones?
Come again?
Will we still do the same with the kids cheering for the other groups, like the...
At the end, when they all come together, do a cheer off? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's still part of the schedule. Okay. Thanks, guys. That's all for me.
All right, we know it's late. We know that you're ready to move on. But just really quick, wanted to kind of explain sharing the gospel to you, which is sharing the gospel, but it is really gathering scattered Israel. That is kind of how we're looking at sharing the gospel. And this is the first year that we're going to kind of incorporate more aspects of gathering Israel. And so the activity this year is to find new ways to heed the prophet's call to gather Israel. President Nelson has done an excellent job of reminding all of us, not just us, but the youth, that is our call, that's our obligation to gather Israel. So the ways that we're going to do it this year is just sort of like a little, I guess, like a buffet of different ways to gather Israel in an activity. So the first part is to connect with ancestors from the past. The second, to share Christ's love in the present. And that sharing Christ's love in the present, what are the things that the youth are now participating in? Ministering. So they're ministering. So they've been talked to many times about sharing the gospel with their friends, explaining, inviting, but they're also in the present ministering, and to think about how to that's part of gathering Israel, right? And then the third part is to make plans to help shape the future of God's kingdom. Also preparation for them to make and keep covenants and to prepare for missions and other things that are associated with gathering Israel. And so this is going to be like an activity, right? The handbook, which you don't have access to, does talk to them about some activities that they do. So they'll all be doing the activity that has to do with discovering the past. And it's kind of like an activity where they have a list of things to do. And the first one has, when it's discovering the past, is trying to help them connect to their ancestors. Things that will help them think about the people and where they come from, right? So there would be points associated, and people who have phones or access to phones could use those. And if they don't, there's activities that they don't have to do that. Let's see, this is one I like. Who do I look like? And the activity is post a picture of yourself next to a picture of an ancestor grandparent, parent, great-grandparent on social media and add a caption about your ancestor and why family history is important to you. That would be like one. So they would divide up with their company and decide, okay, I'm going to do this one, you do this one, and then together they can combine their points of what they do. They can act out a family history story and do a 1-minute video of it, and that would be like 10 points. Just an activity where they're just kind of connecting. They can try and, this is a fun one, find your closest relative in your company using the Relatives Near Me feature app, or just even to download the family search family tree app. They could earn points doing that. So those would be activities that have to do with, and then there'd be a debrief with their counselors about how is this associated with Gathering Israel? How is associating with my ancestors part of Gathering Israel? What can I be doing to gather Israel in the past with connecting with my ancestors and then doing the temple work for them, right? Share in the present. These are also activities. Share a positive thought or something you've learned this week with a parent, sibling, other relative, someone you minister to, maybe via text message, writing, using a blank page in your handbook. Write a letter to someone you know who is struggling with a difficult challenge. This particular activity, there's no points associated. It's more just about thinking about others and thinking about how you can make a difference in someone else's life. And Shaping the Future does talk about, there's a quote from President Nelson from his Hope of Israel Worldwide Youth Devotional, where, the first part is, the prophet has invited each of you to enlist in the youth battalion of the Lord to help gather Israel. What have you done to accept this invitation, and what impact has had in your life? And they would have some time to reflect on the prophet's words, write about them, and then do a debrief after each one of those, where they can just kind of connect with that. Maybe in future years, the entire Sharing the Gospel activity would be all family history related, or the next time it would be all ministering related, and just sort of have that be a regular part of EFY as helping them recognize their ability to help gather scattered Israel. The way that you are part of this, of course, is that Friday morning session director Morningside. You are talking to them about gathering Israel on Friday morning. So just know that your preparation about this topic will be a great foundation for them to move into this activity, which happens immediately afterward. So after the session director Morningside on Friday, then the counselors take their youth and they start this activity. So that way they're not sitting, they're actively involved and engaged and doing things, thinking, feeling, writing, discussing, that they all have an important role in gathering scattered Israel. And that is it.
Hi friends. I know you guys hear a lot from me as is, so I will be short and sweet. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for updating your emails. That transition was pretty easy from your old email to your new email. I really appreciate it. So everybody that put in personnel manager, that's helped me a lot. So kudos to you for that. You're aware that nobody has a handbook in hand. They're not printed yet. So I will be sending out a PDF when I get it. Otherwise, you will get it Sunday night in your session box. So, but I'll get it to you before that so you can at least look at it and you'll have it. Next, evaluations. We fixed a little bit on the evaluations this year. Now, just so you know, this is for office use only, so this doesn't go to anybody, but it's more for me. So when I get evaluations back and I can't read stuff, I need to know who I can go to. So please put your name at the bottom. I don't want initials because sometimes I can't read them. So, and that's just, semantics. So if there's something that I need to come back to you as a session director and I need more information, I can read them. And please put a score, don't just check it. And if you're gonna do like 3.5, that's great, but just make sure I can read it. So it's not always the easiest thing to read. So And then this is the overall recommendation that they get, the speakers get. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but just in case you wanted to know. Also, last year I I will be sending with your 2-week email, everybody will get a speaker evaluation. So those that aren't here at BYU, you will have it. You can use it on your computer. If you want to send it to me via email, that's great. You don't have to send anything in the mail. That's a stamp for you, but just send it via email to me. It makes it a lot easier. So those that are here at BYU, I'll collect them still. We're still doing it the same way here at BYU, but make sure it's legible, and I'll pick those up at BYU. If not, just email them to me, and I will get those to the right people. Also, I will need speaker evaluators here at BYU, so if you're willing to volunteer, just send me an email. And I know, we have to be super careful of the 8 days for S&I, but if there's times that you want to evaluate, I would be happy to take you. So, and then one last thing, the OneDriveLive.com. This is our password. I know Todd and I came up with it all on our own, but so I want everybody to take a picture, because I know there's some of you that are going to forget it, and I will email you, but that's the password for this year. So, and if you need directions on how to get to the OneDrive Live, just email me. And just so you know, JD told us that we're like 7 weeks away from EFY, which means more emails from me. So just gear up, people.
We'll take a minute and listen to one more song, and then JD will give us a message.
In the stillness of my soul, humbly on my knees, I dedicate my life to serve, accept my offering. Send me with a willing heart, bless me with your grace. Touch my soul that I may love purely all my days in the Savior's way. May I serve your precious ones and guide them to the fold. Faithful till my work is done, then bring me safely home. Place my feet along the path of virtue where he stood. Use my hands to bless and heal, and touch each life for good as the Savior would. Precious ones and guide them to the fold. Faithful till my work is done, then bring me safely home. Keep the ones whom I have loved in your watchful care. I speak that you will hear a missionary's prayer.
Pretty powerful, obviously, and we hope that they will get used. This is one that could be used on possibly the young men's and young women's. It's a missionary song, obviously, but you decide where it might be best. But we hope it'll be a tool for you, as always, these songs. That's why we've done them, and we've spent the money to create them so that they'll be used and as a teaching tool as you're there. So take the time to listen to the songs and the lyrics and make it a part of your lessons. So maybe before, I know we're just about out of time, and so but with our theme, I just as every year that we have one, it is not to take the place of the theme that the church has, right? And so this year it happens to be fairly close, with trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and with the heart kind of being our symbol, if you will, our artwork. And then, if you love me, keep my commandments, is with the mutual theme. And so it wasn't by design, but it happened that way. So I think it's a great way to certainly mesh those together in some way, if there's a way to do it. Because we just feel like with our theme, it's just another thing that will help them as reminders to continue to do what they should do. Okay, so just a thought there. With our theme, again, we're not trying to replace the church's mutual theme, but I think it's a great way to come together. Well, some great things today. A lot of information, and we're grateful that you're here, and those that are watching, grateful for you and for your faithfulness and your goodness. And we love you, and we're excited for you. And I know you get a little nervous too for it, and that's good, because that humbles all of us when we are about to embark on things that mean a lot to us. And so I'm going to just set aside a few things that I have, but we'll talk about maybe one thing. This will be the 44th summer of VFY, so we've been doing it a long time, and it's affected a lot of people. So when we started this whole thing, I wasn't around at the time. Well, I was around, just I wasn't working. 1976 is when it began, and Brother Ron Hills, and many of you don't know who he is. I know Brad does. He's met him, and maybe a few of you do know Brother Ron Hills. He's passed away. He's been gone for a few years. But he started this really, and we have a video that's on our website that Brad kind of touches on it. It was really kind of started with the Education Week in mind when they were doing that. The thought was, well, how do we get an Education Week, especially for youth? So that's kind of what started it all. In 1976, the word kind of went out, and they were ready to cancel it because there wasn't interest. Luckily, there was a group from California that decided, hey, we'll take our stake or ward, I don't know which one it was, and they came up and they gave at least enough hope that it allowed the Brother Hills and his staff to decide, well, let's run it. That was 175 people is what it was, and that was in 1976. And so then the next year, there was some more interest, and they had 4 sessions, and then we've just kind of gone from there. So last year we've hit over the 800,000 people mark. That's where we're at. So it's kind of exciting to see where we've been. and where we are today. So I ask you to continue to carry the torch from what was started. Because if 800,000 youth have experienced this, hopefully we've made a difference. And I believe we have. And you as session directors, you are a big part of this. You're setting the tone for the week with the messages that you share. And more importantly, who you are. And some of them need, as I think was referenced at the start where Brad mentioned about the divorce that's happening, they need and want to see good examples. And so, you spouses that are coming, we love you. And if you can come and be a part, because they need to see that goodness, because sometimes they're not getting it. So I challenge you and I invite you to continue to be the good people that you are and be prepared in the many things that you have to do. And we know you have a lot to do. And we know that this is a 5 days or a week experience for you amongst your busy summer, but we're grateful, truly grateful for you. So I'm going to stop crying now, but I'm going to read a letter, and I know the brother and sister Burbage were at this session, and he sent this letter to us, and I think it's exactly what we're trying to figure out and how we're trying to help people. I know not every situation's like this, but this is one that I think I wanted to share with you, so I'm grateful that they passed it on to us so that we could share it in this setting, and then we'll be done. It says, "Dear brother and sister Burbage, I felt the need to personally thank the both of you for all your hard work, inspiration, and joy in which you both brought to EFY this last week. From Monday night's family home evening, talking about how Jesus has so much to share with us and how much he cares for us. She said, I walked away with something that stuck in my head for the rest of the week. That is that our Savior wouldn't ask us to do things that he wouldn't help us with. God has a plan for us, and even though we may go through the trials and difficult times, he will always be there to lead and guide us through faith. I realize how I haven't been putting Jesus first in my life, and it's one of my goals to make him first and foremost in my life. On Friday's morning side, I was really touched about how you were talking about blessings, because that morning in gospel study, that's exactly what I read about. My favorite scripture about blessings is Doctrine and Covenants 82:10. And the blessings in which we receive contribute to true happiness. Now, she says, why am I sharing all this, you may be asking? Due to me not being a member of the church, I didn't know what to expect all this week. I have felt the Spirit of the Holy Ghost for the first time. I have gained my own testimony. And I've learned many lessons and teachings that will stick with me for the rest of my life. I've been so overwhelmed with emotions this week. I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks to this EFY experience, I'm ready to take the next step in learning about our Savior and the church. I want to strengthen my own testimony and share the gospel for the first time with my family. Let your light shine, she says, and there's like sunbursts all around shine. So brothers and sisters, now, again, we won't get this situation every time at our sessions, but the principle is these young people are looking for something, and they're expecting something. The great joy of EFY is it's a built-in readiness. They come ready to be taught. It really is a great setting to be a teacher in. So teach them. Teach them by example and teach the word and love them because they're looking for it to then strengthen their own testimony, to then move on and do great things. So brothers and sisters, I'm grateful for the opportunity that we have at EFY to testify of the truthfulness of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because it is true, and I know you know that, of all groups, I know that you know it. And I know that you live it. And that's why you're here. So may the Lord bless you in your preparation. We're praying for you and for our youth that we'll have this summer. But we trust you in all that you do. And just know that if there's anything that you need, if you have questions, we're here to help you. We're all part of that team where we're helping these young people inch closer to our Savior in whatever way, in whatever path, wherever they're at on that path. So may the Lord bless you in your preparations. We love you. And I know that this work's true. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. I realize this is a job, but yet sometimes it's a little bit more too. So grateful to be rubbing shoulders with you, and I count myself very blessed to be associated with you. So may the Lord bless you is my prayer and our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I believe Alan Matthews is going to give us our closing prayer. Thank you.